911. What's the address of your emergency case then? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We heard and looked in, the garage door was up, and I thought the gentleman was backing out, and I went back to my house, but he never backed out, and I came back over, and his driver's side window is shattered, and he's battered and can't answer. He's inside. I don't know if somebody tried to shoot him or if he shot himself or what. I don't know. He didn't send an ambulance in a hurry. An EMT. He's still alive. He's moving.
Okay. What's going on with him?
I don't know. The driver's side window is all bashed in, and he's got blood all over his head. He's not responding to me. I think you need to hurry.
Yeah, I'm going to get him on the way to you. I just want to ask you a few questions, okay?
Go ahead, but send them as you're asking.
Yes, sir. They're already on the way, okay? Are you with him now?
I'm standing right outside the garage door.
Can you tell me how old he is?
I don't know. He looks like maybe 35 or 40.
Hang on 1 second for me, okay?
Okay.
All right, sir. I apologize about that. What was how old is the patient again? I'm sorry.
I can't tell. He looks maybe 35 or 40. I don't know.
Okay. And is he awake?
He's just moving his head around, but he's not responding. I've called his name, asked what's going on, or not called his name, but asked him what's happening. He's not responding to that, but his head's kind of rolling around.
Okay. Is he conscious?
Well, I can't tell.
Okay. Is he breathing?
I can't tell that. I'm assuming he's breathing if he's moving his head around.
Did you ever hear him talk or anything?
No.
Okay. You said he's sitting in the car, right?
Correct, in the driver's seat.
Okay. Where exactly is he? In the driver's seat? You know,
in the driver's seat.
Is he in the garage or?
In the garage.
Okay. Can you direct the emergency crews to him, sir?
Sure.
Okay. All right, I'm sending the paramedics to help you now. Just stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
Okay.
If it's safe to do so, see if he is conscious and breathing or moving at all, okay?
It's not safe for me to do. I don't want to put my hand in here.
Okay. Well, help's on the way.
Okay.
All right.
What if I told you that the most important person in one of the most shocking cases in American legal history was never charged with a single crime, and yet her name never fully left the courtroom? What if I told you that she sat in that courtroom, composed, articulate, and under oath, while prosecutors, defense attorneys, and the public all asked the same burning question? What if I told you that the answer to who truly set this tragedy in motion may have never fully come out, and that the one person who might know the most is also the one person who has been most careful about what she says? Her name is Wendi Adelson, and this is her story. Before we go any further, if you're watching this right now and you're not yet subscribed to Dark Trail Files, this is your moment. We do not do surface-level storytelling here. We go into the details that other channels skip. We ask the questions that make you uncomfortable. We follow the trail no matter where it leads. Every single week, we are bringing you the most gripping, most researched, most thought-provoking true crime content anywhere on this platform. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications, because once this story is over, you're going to want to know the moment our next one drops. This is Dark Trail Files. Stay on the trail. It was a Friday morning in July 2014. The kind of quiet, warm summer morning that Tallahassee, Florida does well. The kind of morning where the biggest worry in most neighborhoods is whether the sprinklers ran long enough. The kind of morning that does not prepare you for what happened next. Dan Markel, a 36-year-old law professor at Florida State University, pulled into the garage of his home on Trescott Drive. He had just returned from the gym. He was a father of 2 young boys. He was a respected scholar, a prolific legal writer, and by all accounts, a man who was trying to rebuild his life after the end of his marriage. He never made it inside. 2 gunshots ended his life inside that garage. Neighbors heard the shots. Someone called 911. And just like that, one of the most layered, most emotionally complex murder investigations in modern Florida history had begun. Before we hear the actual moment this case began, before the courtrooms and the testimony and the years of investigation, there's something raw that takes you back to the very beginning. This is the call that started all.
911, what's the address of your emergency location? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We heard and looked in, the garage door was up, and I thought the gentleman was backing out, and I went back to my house, but he never backed out, and I came back over, and his driver's side window is shattered, and he's battered and can't answer. He's inside. I don't know if somebody tried to shoot him or if he shot himself or what. I don't know. He didn't send an ambulance in a hurry. An EMT. He's still alive. He's moving.
Okay, what's going on with him?
I don't know. The driver's side window is all bashed in, and he's got blood all over his head. He's not responding to me. I think you need to hurry.
Yeah, I'm going to get him on the way to you. I just want to ask you a few questions, okay?
Go ahead, but send them as you're asking.
Yes, sir. They're already on the way, okay? Are you with him now?
I'm standing right outside the garage door.
Can you tell me how old he is?
I don't know. He looks like maybe 35 or 40.
Hang on one second for me, okay?
Okay.
All right, sir. I apologize about that. What was how old is the patient again? I'm sorry.
I can't tell. He looks maybe 35 or 40. I don't know.
Okay. And is he awake?
He's moving his head around, but he's not responding. I've called his name, asked what's going on, or not call his name, but ask him what's happening. He's not responding to that, but his head's kind of rolling around.
Okay. Is he conscious?
Well, I can't tell.
Okay. Is he breathing?
I can't tell that. I'm assuming he's breathing if he's moving his head around.
Did you ever hear him talk or anything?
No.
Okay. You said he's sitting in the car, right?
Correct, in the driver's seat.
Okay. Where exactly is he? In the driver's seat? You know.
In the driver's seat.
Is he in the garage or?
In the garage.
Okay. Can you direct the emergency crews to him, sir?
Sure.
Okay. All right, I'm sending the paramedics to help you now. Just stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
Okay.
If it's safe to do so, see if he is conscious and breathing or moving at all, okay?
It's not safe for me to do. I don't want to put my hand in here.
Okay. Well, help's on the way.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be standing by. And I've heard about break-ins in the area, and so I decided to walk over and take a look. And the garage door was up and asked him what was happening. And then I saw the window was shattered, and he's got blood. I'm going to be over here waiting for the EMT, honey. Okay, go ahead, but just tell the kids to hold on inside. They're okay. So tell them I'm out here.
All right, just stay on the line with me for now, okay, sir?
Okay, I'm here.
I got him on the way to you.
Very good. I'm standing at the street, so if I see him coming down the street, I can direct him right in.
So he won't respond to you at all?
Not to me.
Holler at him or anything?
Yeah, he didn't respond, but his head kind of moving around.
Okay.
But I've walked away from the car right now. I'm standing at the street, so.
And he's?
No.
Okay.
He's inside. The window's shattered. The garage door was up.
Okay.
Where is the vehicle dispatched from?
I'm not sure. Give me a second. I'll try to see where they are, okay? Is he still moving around?
I don't know. I'm standing at the street now trying to wait for your vehicle. Did you say you were checking on where it was?
Yes, sir.
Or where it's coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it coming from?
I'm checking.
Okay.
Got several people on the way. Looks like one person's coming from McClay Road.
Okay, well, it may take them a while to get here then. We're close to the hospital, so.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying his head is bloody now?
Yeah, it's been bloody. I mean, it's...
Okay.
The window shattered. I don't know if he's tried to shoot himself. I don't know what the situation is.
And it's the driver's side window, correct?
That's correct. He's still moving around, so he's alive.
Okay. Looks like I should have an officer coming up the roadway.
Okay, well, we need EMT.
Well, the officer's going to be there first. They're not going to come until we figure out what's going on, but they're on the way as well, okay?
He better be if this guy's got a shot living.
Yes, sir. They're on the way as well, okay?
Yep. It looks like could be the officer now.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's just coming up right now.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and let you go, sir, okay?
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Right.
When you hear that call, really hear it, something settles into your chest. Because in that moment, there are no theories. There are no courtrooms. There are no legal strategies. There's only a person on a phone trying to make sense of something that has no immediate sense to make. There's a man who went to the gym that morning and never came home. And somewhere out in the world, the people responsible for what happened were still walking free. That call was the beginning. But the full story, the real story, started long before that Friday morning. To understand everything that followed, you have to understand the relationship between Dan Markel and Wendi Adelson. They met at Harvard Law School. Both were brilliant. Both were driven. They married in 2006, and for a time, they built what looked like a promising life together. 2 sons, academic careers, a home in Tallahassee where Dan had accepted a prestigious position at Florida State University's College of Law. But marriages do not always survive what they are asked to carry. By 2013, Dan and Wendi had divorced. The split, by many accounts, was not smooth. There were disagreements over custody. There were tensions over where the boys would grow up. And there was a persistent, unresolved pull from the Adelson family, Wendi's family, who lived in South Florida and who, according to later testimony and investigation, were not entirely comfortable with how things had unfolded. What seemed like a difficult but ordinary divorce would later be examined through an entirely different lens. Because what investigators eventually uncovered was not just a domestic dispute that got out of hand. What they uncovered was something that went far deeper, a family, a plan, and a series of decisions that could not be undone. The Adelson family, Wendi's mother Donna, her brother Charlie, and Wendi herself, would all eventually find themselves connected to this investigation in ways none of them could have predicted when that marriage first began to crack. The Adelson family is not what you would picture when you imagine a criminal case. They are educated. They are polished. They are the kind of family that belongs on the pages of a Sunday lifestyle magazine. Successful, close-knit, charming on the surface. Charlie Adelson is a dentist in South Florida. His mother, Donna Adelson, is a real estate professional, well-established in the South Florida community. And Wendi Adelson, by any measure, is brilliant. She earned her law degree from Harvard. She built an academic career. She was articulate, composed, and careful. But somewhere in this picture of a successful, educated family, something went very wrong. The investigation into Dan Markel's death would eventually lead investigators directly to this family. Not through a single dramatic piece of evidence, but through a slow, painstaking accumulation of connections. Phone calls, financial transactions, relationships, and eventually the cooperation of people who had been inside the circle. What emerged was a theory that would shake the foundation of this case and raise questions that are still, even today, not fully answered. Within months of Dan Markel's death, 2 men were identified as the individuals who carried out the attack. Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera, both from the Miami area, were eventually arrested and convicted for their roles in the murder. Rivera cooperated with investigators. Garcia did not. But the question that consumed the investigation for years was not just who pulled the trigger. The question was, who wanted Dan Markel dead? And who made that happen? Follow the money. That is what investigators did. The trail led to a woman named Catherine Magbanua. She was a significant figure in this story, not just because of her legal journey, but because of who she was connected to. Catherine had a child with Sigfredo Garcia, and she had been in a relationship with Charlie Adelson. The prosecution's theory was that Charlie Adelson had arranged, or at least facilitated, payment for the killing of his sister's ex-husband. That money and instructions moved through connections that traced back to the Adelson family. That this was not a random act of violence, but something orchestrated by people who wanted Dan Markel removed from the picture permanently. Catherine Magbanua was tried twice. The first trial ended in a hung jury. The second resulted in a conviction for first-degree murder. She is currently serving a life sentence. But here is where the story becomes almost unbearably complicated. Because throughout all of it, throughout arrests and trials and convictions, neither Donna Adelson, nor Charlie Adelson, nor Wendi Adelson had been criminally charged. Until November 2022. In November 2022, the The case tore open in a way that had not been seen since those first dark days after the shooting. A grand jury indicted both Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson. Donna was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder. Charlie Adelson was charged with solicitation to commit murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The indictments described a family that allegedly wanted this divorce resolved in the most extreme way imaginable. They described conversations, money, and coordination. And at the center of it all, again, not charged but undeniably present, was Wendi Adelson. Because Wendi was the ex-wife. She was the one the prosecution's theory placed at the origin of whatever family discussion or grievance may have led to what happened. She was the connection between the Adelson family and the victim. She was the person whose name ran through the entire architecture of the case. And now her mother and brother were facing criminal charges. The question of Wendi Adelson's role, what she knew, what she may have heard, what she may have said or not said, became one of the most debated questions in true crime circles and legal commentary alike. Here is something the news coverage does not always capture. Wendi Adelson was not simply a bystander to this investigation. She was, from relatively early on, someone that investigators looked at carefully. There were interviews, there was scrutiny, and there was, at one point, a confrontation with law enforcement that captured footage that would later become some of the most discussed material connected to this case. A body camera recording from a police interaction with Wendi Adelson became the subject of significant public discussion. In it, Wendi is emotional. She is tearful. But what drew attention from observers, from investigators, from commentators, was not the presence of emotion, but something in the rhythm of it. There are moments in this case where the most revealing things happen not in a courtroom, not under oath, but in the raw, unscripted space of a police interaction. What you are about to see is Wendi Adelson during one of those moments. And whether you see grief or performance may depend entirely on how closely you watch.
Did Reggie with you?
I just listened to my voicemail.
What'd you hear?
Who
was your voicemail?
It's from Lisa Carey, who is my real estate agent, or who I had gone with to find a house. She just said she was driving around town and she heard there was a shooting on Trescott.
Yeah, that's what this is about. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I should,
It's all right, just leave it there. Is it still on?
It's right there.
Hey, it's Lisa Carey. It is Friday, and I feel like an idiot doing this, but I just heard that there was a shooting over on Trescott, and I promise I'm not trying to be dramatic or even nosy. I don't know, just checking on you, my friend. I hope all is well. I hope your sweet boys are well, and if there's anything you need, let me know. It just ran a chill down my spine when I heard that there was something going on Trescott. All right, 212-3083. Hope all is well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
That's all right, you can stop it. Or does it stop automatically?
It's done.
Okay, do you have your identification with you? So you never took the last name of Markel?
No.
Adelson. Okay. Wendi with an I. Joe. All right. There was a shooting at your home, or your ex-husband's home, at 2116 Trescott. Okay. Your ex-husband, Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay.
What happened?
Well, we get into everything, I have to establish where you were and who you were with and so forth.
Okay.
Okay, and then once we've established all that, I can give you more details.
Okay.
Do you understand why I wanted you to come here before I discuss this?
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, you have nothing to be sorry about.
I just don't understand. How could this happen?
Can you let me get over this hump, okay? Can we do that first? All right. Can you tell me what time you left your house this morning?
Yeah, I was there. I didn't leave this morning. I didn't leave until noon.
Okay. And
Oh my God. And I tried to drive up Trescott and I saw that it was blocked.
It was blocked at some point. I'm not sure what time it was
And I
blocked.
just thought, oh, there's maybe some trees down or something. Because sometimes
Oh, you're saying as you drove down which one of the side roads?
when I'm going to a friend's party tonight, and it's a oh my God, what am I even talking about? I needed to buy, it's a stock the shelf engagement party, and so I went to buy bourbon.
Okay.
So I went to drive from my place up Trescott to get to ABC Liquor, and it was blocked, so I just turned around. I was on the phone at the time. I wasn't paying a lot of attention.
Right.
So I just turned around and drove up the other way. I just thought, oh, sometimes when I lived there were electrical things
Okay.
that would happen. I left my house around 12:15 because I thought I'll get the bourbon and then I'll get some gas for the car and get super glue for one of the boys' toys. And I was trying to do all I can before meeting my two friends at 1.
Okay, who was at your house this morning?
The only person that was at my house this morning was a guy from Best Buy because my TV was broken and it's under warranty.
Good for you.
Yeah, I figured.
Okay,
Oh my God.
a guy from Best Buy was at your house to work on your TV?
I have his name and everything at the house if you
Okay.
want it, because the boys broke the TV, so he gave me a choice of fixing it or getting a new one. And
What time did he come to the house?
he called me at around 8. He was probably there until around 10.
Okay,
Um,
okay. And then you,
and then after he left, I kept working on a paper, and I emailed the paper to a librarian at school to work on some of the citations.
okay.
And I don't think I talked to anyone else, but I was just working for an hour or so from the house. I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry, and then I left the house around noon.
To go to the liquor store and the stuff for the party?
Yeah,
Okay, you went down which road you said?
I went down Trescott.
Okay.
I saw a police car there, and I just thought it was blocked, so I just turned around and drove to, I went down the rest of Centerville, went up Benton, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors, bought the bourbon.
I'm a little confused. You're up on Centerville Road. What's your purpose of driving down Trescott?
It's usually the shortcut to get to
Oh.
Monroe.
To get to Monroe?
I usually take it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe.
Okay, all right, so
I
you,
don't know why I said Monroe. I was thinking Mosaic, Monroe, Thomasville.
okay, so when you come down into town on Centerville,
I almost always cut through Trescott.
Trescott, and just drive by your old house?
Well, I do it as a way of like coming to terms with a divorce. But yeah, sometimes I drive there. If I'm too sad, I drive around.
Okay,
If the kids aren't home and I know they're not home, I feel better about driving by the house. But yeah, it's shorter and I just usually drive by.
it's shorter than going all the way down to Benton.
All the way down Centerville and around Benton. It's just
Right.
a shortcut I always took.
Okay, so you turned around and went back to Centerville, I take it,
Yeah.
down to Benton? And went to the liquor store down there on Thomasville?
Yeah.
The one at Benton Road?
ABC Liquors, it's at, Benton. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Did you make a purchase there?
Yeah,
And that was sometime after 12?
probably 12:30.
Okay. All right.
And I talked to a guy there because I don't really buy much alcohol, and so they wanted bourbon, and I asked the guy, we had a whole conversation about bourbon and
Right.
my eyes, like,
Your eyes?
he just said, your eyes are really blue,
Right.
and
You have contacts?
I do.
Okay.
But I just remembered it.
Right.
So I bought the bourbon and got some gas on Thomasville and met my friends at Mosaic.
Which gas station did you go to on Thomasville?
The one that's, I always forget the name, but the one that's close to the cross street, it's right next to the Goodwill.
Okay.
If you're heading north on Thomasville, if you're heading north on Thomasville, it's on your right.
Okay. Just past the Goodwill
Just
place?
past the Goodwill, it's close to the intersection there.
Okay. All right. And then from that point, you went straight to the
Went to Mosaic
Mosaic restaurant?
and met friends there. I used to have kind of a steady Friday meeting, and I hadn't seen my two friends in a while. And so we had made plans to meet up.
What time did you get to Mosaic?
About 1. I was a little late. We were supposed to meet at 1, and I got there a few minutes after.
Okay. All right. I know it's cold in here. Okay.
I think that's not why. I'm
Okay.
shaking.
I know it's part of it, but do you know anybody that would have a beef against your ex-husband?
He's, oh God.
I hate to ask it now, but I have to do it now. You
I
understand,
understand.
right?
I understand. He had friends. He always meant well, but he would sometimes rub people the wrong way.
Okay.
But not anyone who would do something like this.
Anybody that he owes money to?
No, he owes money to me,
He owes money to you?
but not,
Okay.
not me.
Okay. All right. All right.
Oh my God, we're poor kids. Oh, I know a lot of people didn't really love him, but I don't know anyone who would do something like this.
Well, we're still trying to determine, what happened and how it happened.
But he wouldn't do this to himself.
Okay.
He was a very positive person.
Okay. No one that you know of or that you've spoken to recently that he's had some type of problem with or that he was concerned about?
No one that he was concerned about. I mean, we've been separated for 2 years, so I don't know,
Right.
if he had something going on, I wouldn't know about it, but, I mean, I had lost my voice earlier this week, and so we had put off this conversation about our son's school and where he was going to go, and he, I can't, I know a lot of people didn't love him, but not anyone who would, hate him.
Okay.
He meant well, everyone that knew him
Okay.
knows that he means well, but he can be a little, argumentative,
Right.
but not, he didn't owe anyone money, he didn't do anything except work and take care of his kids. He wasn't involved in anything bad.
Okay.
I can't believe this is happening.
I know. And he was a professor at the law school, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And your divorce has been 2 years or the total separation, I'm assuming?
Total separation's been 2 years. Our divorce was finalized last summer around this time.
Okay.
He wouldn't do this to himself. He has a girlfriend now.
Grief is not a performance, and we should be careful about judging anyone in pain. But here is what is interesting about human behavior under pressure. Genuine emotion tends to be consistent. It follows a rhythm. It does not start and stop in clean intervals. What observers pointed to in this footage was not any single dramatic moment. It was the pattern. the emotion appearing and then receding. The moments where composure returned quickly and cleanly. The sense, for many viewers, that what they were watching felt more controlled than uncontrolled. Is that proof of anything? No. People process grief in wildly different ways. Shock creates unusual emotional behavior. The presence of law enforcement creates enormous pressure. But the body camera footage became a touchstone of this case. One of the pieces of evidence that people return to again and again, trying to understand who Wendi Adelson really was in those moments. And the question it left behind was simple and devastating. Was this a traumatized woman reacting to the worst chapter of her life? Or was this someone who knew more than she was showing? In the years after the divorce and before and after Dan Markel's death, Wendi Adelson did something that, in the context of everything that followed, would become one of the most discussed details in this entire case. She wrote a novel. The book, titled Back to Life, is a work of fiction. Wendi wrote it. And at first glance, it sounds like the kind of personal creative project many people undertake during periods of transition. A divorce, a new chapter, a way to process life through storytelling. But then people started reading the details. The novel deals with themes of a troubled marriage, family entanglements, and the complicated nature of relationships after love has broken down. Elements within the fictional narrative drew comparisons, some subtle, some striking, to circumstances in Wendi's own life. Fiction is a way that human beings process what they cannot fully say out loud. It is a place where imagination and reality can blur in ways the author may not even fully understand. Here is Wendi Adelson herself, in court, talking about the book she wrote, and what she says may leave you thinking long after this video ends.
And is that the only book you've written, or have you written more than one book?
I've only written one book.
What was the book about?
The book was about human trafficking and about the vulnerabilities that lead to trafficking, the problems when it occurs, and basically how to recover from it after.
Where was the book set?
It was set in a fictional town.
What was the name of the fictional town?
Hiawassee Springs.
So Hiawassee. Is it located in the panhandle of Florida?
No, I used to see the name when I was driving from Tallahassee to Orlando, so it's somewhere in between.
And was the place modeled after Tallahassee?
It was definitely somewhere in Florida, but not supposed to be about Tallahassee, no.
Who was the central character in that book?
So there's 3 central characters. One was one of my clients, kind of a composite character from Eastern Europe. One was kind of a composite character of many clients I've represented from Latin America, and one was a public interest lawyer.
And was the public interest lawyer Lily?
Yes.
And is that the character that was sort of based after yourself?
No, really more based after a friend of mine.
And was Hiawassee, Florida, quote, just a small stop on the way back to what we had previously known as civilization? Is that a quote from your book?
That sounds like a quote from my book, yeah.
And who's the husband of Lily, the public interest lawyer?
You want his name in the book?
Yes.
I think it was Josh Stone.
All right, and what was Josh's employment?
Josh was an English professor.
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
Josh was an English professor.
A professor, where did he teach?
It's been a while. I wrote the book over 10 years ago. I don't remember what I named the university in the
North Florida State University?
That sounds right.
NFSU?
NFSU sounds right, yeah.
All right, and in the book, does Lily lament, quote, we moved to this godforsaken place for Josh's career?
Yes, that sounds like a line Lily would say.
All right. When you looked at page 187 of the divorce document on cross, and I'll hand that back to you. This is actually my copy. Just turn back to 187. Do you see the quote that you read previously from that page?
I don't.
Okay. It had to do with, let's see if I can find it, that you were very unhappy in the marriage. I think it's the third paragraph there.
I see that line.
Okay, the wife has been very unhappy in the marriage and files her petition for dissolution of marriage in August 2012. The husband continues to characterize this as abandonment, and then it goes on to say that he had been disparaging you to some of the folks at the law school. Do you remember reading that?
I do.
Was that intended to be the place in this binder where you allege emotional abuse by your husband?
I mean, I think it's emotionally abusive to suggest somebody has mental health issues.
Okay. What is the Prof's blog? You were asked about that on Cross.
Yeah, it was a blog that Danny started with some of his colleagues to kind of promote community in the law professor world.
And who reads the Prof's?
Probably
Prof's blog?
other law professors and people interested in becoming law professors.
Who is on the Crim Prof listserv?
I don't know.
Were you on the listserv for that Prof's blog?
I may have been on the listserv at some point.
Do you remember seeing the post that you were shown on Cross?
I do.
And the post says something about Danny and I are planning to attend a conference that will begin Sunday, July 20th. Is there any other information on what you were shown about Dan's travel plans post-murder other than that?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
The post says, Danny and I guess it's another professor writing this thing. Danny and I are planning to attend a conference that will begin Sunday, July 20th. Is that the type of information that he would typically have on something like the Prof's blog or Facebook?
That sounds right.
Okay, but as far as the date he's leaving, the flight he's on, that kind of stuff, would that typically be on the Prof's blog?
He wouldn't put what flight number he was on, but he would almost always communicate when he was going on a trip.
Okay, so going to a conference that starts July 20th might be an example.
Flying to New York tomorrow would be an example.
Okay, but
not a flight number.
But he didn't put flying to New York tomorrow on this occasion.
No.
You were referenced several times, not on direct examination by the state, but by your brother's attorney on Cross as a co-conspirator. Are you charged in this case?
No.
This isn't your trial, is it?
No.
Is your brother charged with conspiring with you to do a murder?
No.
Is he charged with conspiring with you to plan a murder?
No.
Is he charged with soliciting you to do a murder?
No.
Who is he charged with doing those things with?
I don't think anyone.
Have you had an opportunity to review his indictment in this case?
I have not.
Give you an opportunity to take a look at that document to yourself. Who is your brother alleged to have done these crimes with?
Catherine D. Magbanowa.
Were you on the wire in this case, Ms. Adelson?
No.
So when the bump happened, are you familiar with the event I'm referencing as the bump?
I am now.
When law enforcement approached your mother on the street and handed her a piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay, when that occurred, who did your mother call?
I don't know.
Not you, right?
Not me.
Okay. And once your brother found out about the bump, did he call you about it?
No.
Who did he call?
I don't know.
Well, you listened to the calls to authenticate the voices, didn't you?
Just to hear the voices, not to hear the content of the calls.
Okay. And the voices were your brother's voice, right?
But I listened to the calls just to hear who was on them, so I don't know what content they're referencing.
I heard your answer. My question to you now is, your brother's voice was on the calls.
He was on some of the calls I listened to.
Okay. Your mother's voice was on the calls.
She was on some of the calls I listened to.
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
You were asked about Jeffrey Lacasse and the way that your relationship ended. What is OkCupid?
OkCupid is a dating website.
Were you on that dating website?
I was.
Were you on that dating website at the time that you were dating Mr. Lacasse?
No, I wasn't.
And were you speaking, so I guess if you weren't on it, you weren't speaking to multiple men from the website during the time you were dating Mr. Lacasse. And I'll remind you that you provided your phone in this case, and it was cell-brighted, downloaded.
Objection, Your Honor. Argument approach.
There's a long tradition in literature of authors drawing from their own lives. Writing what you know is some of the oldest advice in the craft. And Wendi Adelson, as a trained lawyer and an educated woman, was certainly capable of drawing from her own experience for creative purposes. But this is where the human mind does something uncomfortable. It pattern matches. It looks at a woman who wrote fiction about themes eerily similar to her own life circumstances. It looks at the timing. It looks at the content. And it asks a question that may be entirely unfair, but that it cannot stop asking. Is this just a novel? Or is it the closest thing we have to a window into what was happening inside one person's mind during one of the most turbulent periods of this case? Here is something worth sitting with. The book was published. It is out in the world. And the fact that it exists, that Wendi chose to write those specific themes, is not something anyone inserted into this case from the outside. She put there herself. Whether that means anything at all is for you to decide. We have walked you through the beginning. The shooting, the family, the indictments, the footage that made people stop and look twice. But here is what you do not yet know. When Wendi Adelson finally took a seat on a witness stand, not as a defendant, not as an accused person, but as a sworn witness in her own mother's murder trial, what came out was something that split observers right down the middle. Some walked away believing her completely. Others walked away with more questions than they had before. And the moment that may tell you the most about who she is the moment she opened her mouth and started to speak. Stay with us. Donna Adelson's trial for the murder of Dan Markel was one of the most emotionally loaded trials in recent Florida history. The defendant was a mother. The key witness against her, and for her, depending on the moment, was her own daughter. Wendi Adelson took the stand in her mother's trial in a position that is almost impossible to fully describe. She was not on trial. She had not been charged, but she was also undeniably at the center of everything. Her relationship with Dan Markel had started this. Her family had been indicted because of what happened to him. And now she was sitting in a witness box, under oath, in a case where her mother's freedom was at stake. The psychology of that moment is staggering. Think about it. You're a lawyer. You're trained to understand evidence and testimony and the weight of words. You are sitting in a chair that your mother's life may depend on. And the entire courtroom, the jury, the press, the public, is watching every single thing you do. This is the moment many people have been waiting for. Not just in this trial, but throughout this entire investigation. Wendi Adelson, finally, under oath in her mother's trial. Watch her carefully from the very first moment she begins to speak.
Name and spell your name.
Wendi Adelson, Wendiadelson.
Ms. Adelson, where are you from?
I'm from Coral Springs, Florida.
And you live in another state now, currently, right?
I do, yes, ma'am.
All right. How are you employed?
I'm an immigration attorney.
How long have you been an attorney?
Since 2006.
And you're here pursuant to a state subpoena, is that correct?
Yes.
And that subpoena confers a type of immunity on you. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. Which means that nothing you say here in court pursuant to that subpoena can be used against you at a later time. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean you could never be prosecuted. It just means that what you say in court could not be used in any future prosecution. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. I want to ask you about your ex-husband, Daniel Markel. Is that a fair and accurate photo of Mr. Markel?
Yes.
When did you meet him?
We met originally online. It must have been the fall of my first year of law school, so 2003.
Okay. And when did you marry Mr. Markel?
We married in February of 2006.
Were you living in Tallahassee at some point as a married couple?
Yes.
When did you move to Tallahassee?
We moved to Tallahassee my final year of law school, so that would have been in the summer of 2005. And we were here from 2005 till 2006. We spent a year at the University of Miami from 2006 to 2007, and then came back to Tallahassee from 2007 until 2014.
All right. And during the time that you were living here in Tallahassee, did you live over on Trescott Drive?
For some of the time that we lived here, yes.
And when your first child was born, were you residing at the Trescott Drive residence at that point?
Yes.
Okay. I think I have a photo of that here. Is that the Trescott Drive residence?
Yes.
And how many children did you have with Mr. Markel?
We have 2 children.
What were their ages at the time of their father's death?
It was 10 days before my older son's 5th birthday, so he was 4 turning 5, and our younger son was 3.5. The boys are 14 months apart.
And did there come a time when you and Mr. Markel separated?
Yes.
When was the separation?
It was in the fall of 2012.
Whose decision was it to separate?
It was mine.
How did your ex take that news?
Well, we talked about it many times before it actually happened, but when the separation became official, he was very upset.
And even though there were problems and issues and discussions, it was a surprise to him when it actually happened, right?
It was.
Okay. And was part of the reason for the separation your differing views on how to raise the kids pursuant to the Jewish faith?
I'd say it was a very small part, but it was a part.
Did you consider your ex to be a religious zealot?
No, I didn't think he was a religious zealot, but I did think he was using religion as a way of controlling me.
There's something that happens in a courtroom when a witness carries this much weight. The air changes. The attention in the room sharpens. Because everyone present knows, the jury, the attorneys, the judge, that what this person says could alter everything. Watch the composure. Watch the deliberate quality of the phrasing. Watch the places where she chooses words with precision. Wendi Adelson is not a casual speaker. She's not someone who stumbles through testimony. She's trained in language. She's trained in argument. She is trained in the weight that specific words carry. And that is exactly why what she says and what she does not say matters so much. At one point during the proceedings connected to this case, Wendi Adelson's intelligence was directly acknowledged. It came up in a way that was meant, on its face, to be a simple observation. She is smart, highly educated, articulate. But in the context of a murder trial, in the context of a case this complex, that observation cuts in 2 very different directions. Intelligence in a courtroom is a complicated thing. It can work for you and against you at the same time. Here is one of those moments where Wendi Adelson's intelligence becomes the very thing being discussed.
Now I want to talk about your knowledge and your belief on this. You're a smart person, right?
How am I supposed to answer that?
Well, let's go through your resume. You went to Brandeis University, right?
I did.
You graduated magna cum laude.
I did.
If you could explain to the jury what that means.
It means I studied a lot and got good grades.
All right. It means, and to speak, I'm from the Northeast. My Boston accent may give it away. It means you're wicked smart, right?
That's very
You had a high GPA, a very high GPA.
I work hard.
You also went and you got a master's degree from the University of Cambridge.
I did.
You were a Gates Scholar.
I was.
You then go to the University of Miami School of Law, which is a top-tier law school, Tier 1, right?
Okay.
Right? We're talking about your level of intelligence. You went to the University of Miami Law School, right?
I did, yes.
You also clerked at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, right?
I did.
Now, to get a clerkship out of law school, it's a very difficult thing to do, right?
It's challenging.
You have to have top grades. You have to go through a rigorous selection process, right?
Yes.
You then become a professor at the Florida State University College of Law, right?
Yes.
You're also a published author, right?
Now you're just embarrassing me.
This case everywhere. You'd agree with me on that, right?
I've been advised by my lawyer not to read it.
All right. Now, we're not talking about reading stuff. There's podcasts,
Also not to listen.
TV shows,
Also not to watch.
articles.
Don't read.
And so you've made the decision. Now, you're a lawyer yourself too, right?
I am.
And you made the decision, I'm not going to look at any of this stuff.
Correct.
I don't want to know what happened to the father of my 2 children.
Not I don't want to know what happened.
How can you say you love those boys if you don't care who killed the father that they loved?
You also have a separate obligation as an attorney to tell the truth, right?
Of course.
Okay.
I don't believe that I did.
You did not.
I don't remember doing that, no.
No further questions.
I don't remember exactly the timeline of that.
Okay, thank you.
Lawyers, yeah. I honestly don't remember.
Here is the uncomfortable truth. A smart person knows exactly where the legal lines are. A smart person understands which words create exposure and which words create distance. A smart person can answer a question truthfully while simultaneously making sure that truthful answer does not lead anywhere damaging. Does that mean Wendi Adelson was doing that? Not necessarily. Intelligent people tell the truth all the time. Intelligent people grieve genuinely. Intelligent people can be completely innocent. But here's the question that lingers. When someone with this level of training and intelligence is on a witness stand, in a case this close to her own life, are you hearing spontaneous testimony? Or are you hearing the most carefully constructed version of events that a trained legal mind can produce? That is not an accusation. That is a genuine question about the nature of testimony itself. And it is a question that honest observers of this trial could not stop asking. Of all the relationships in this case, none is more complicated than the one between Wendi Adelson and her brother Charlie Adelson. Charlie was indicted. Charlie was the person prosecutors placed at the center of the alleged arrangement. Charlie was the one who had been in a relationship with Catherine Magbanua, the woman who was later convicted for her role in the murder. And Charlie was Wendi's brother. In court, Wendi spoke about her relationship with Charlie. She spoke about the closeness between them. And the tone of those moments, the warmth, the protectiveness, was undeniable. Family bonds are powerful things. But in the context of a criminal case, they become something else entirely. They become something a jury has to evaluate, weigh, and decide what to do with. Here is Wendi Adelson talking about her close relationship with her brother Charlie.
I absolutely had a close relationship with my brother.
And how soon after the murder did your lawyer advise you not to talk to your family about it?
In 2016.
Okay, so what about the 2 years in between? Did you talk to him about it then?
I mean, I talked to him about the fact that a murder occurred, but I guess I don't understand the question.
But you never talked to him about the suspicions you raised in the law enforcement interview that your brother might have done it?
No, I did not.
You suspected your brother could have been a part of this, right?
I suspected lots of people could have been a part of it.
But he was one of the people, right?
While I was talking with law enforcement for 6 hours, terrified out of my mind, I offered them every possible idea I could come up with.
Right, and one of the possible ideas was that your brother could have murdered your child's father.
I didn't really believe that was possible.
Was part of the plot for you to be able to have plausible deniability about this?
Absolutely not.
Is it better for both you and your brother if you don't know the details of this?
I don't even understand the question that you're asking me.
When did you first become aware that you might be a suspect in this case?
I mean, as the ex-wife, I assumed I was a suspect from the beginning.
What was your first thought when you were asked if anyone might have murdered Dan Markel for your benefit?
I thought, oh my God, maybe if I hadn't divorced him, he would still be alive. Maybe this is my fault because I complained to the wrong person. Maybe Danny gave a student a bad grade and they came after him. I just was trying to think of who possibly could have wanted to hurt him.
But you didn't say any of that before. I mean, the first thing you said was Charlie, right?
I don't think so.
Page 25 of your interview, line 5 through 15. Do you have any reason to dispute? Page 25, not 5 hours into it. You say Charlie might have done it, right?
Can I see, please?
You may. This is going to be tab 1, page 25.
What I say here is that he would never do it. Right under the highlighted part, I say no, he would never.
Need a copy?
Page 25, line 5 through 15. I mean, my brother, the one, his name is Charlie, the one I'm really close to. He makes a lot of jokes in that taste, and it was a joke he made. He bought the TV for me this morning that got broken, and then I was talking to him about whether it made sense to pay or fix it, or whether I should get a new one. And it was always his joke that, like, he knew that Danny always treated me badly, and it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV. And you do say you don't think he would do it, but can we agree you brought up his name on page 25 of the interview?
I did.
When asked, would you ever ask someone to do something like this? You say not in a million years. When asked, okay, do you think someone would do this for your benefit without asking you? You say no. And when Isom starts to ask you what good does it serve, you say, I mean my brother, the one, his name is Charlie. Isn't that how it went?
This is the transcript, but I think there's also inaccuracies in the transcription.
Oh boy. All right. Do you want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
I mean, somebody hired them, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid them.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want them held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I said.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly what I said right here. No, that's not right.
No further questions.
Listen to how she talks about him. Listen to the emotional register, the words she chooses, the way she frames their relationship. Now hold that alongside everything the prosecution had already told the jury about Charlie Adelson's alleged role in her ex-husband's death. If the prosecution's theory is correct, if Charlie was involved in arranging what happened to Dan Markel, then what does it mean for Wendi to speak about him with that level of warmth? Is it the genuine love of a sister who believes in her brother's innocence? Is it the kind of loyalty that exists separate from full knowledge? Or is it something more complicated, a closeness so deep that it became, for this family, a weight they all had to carry? You were allowed to sit with the discomfort of not knowing the answer. Because the truth is, even after years of investigation, even after trials and convictions and indictments, the exact nature of Wendi Adelson's knowledge and role in all of this has never been fully resolved in a court of law. And that makes her one of the most fascinating and unresolved figures in modern true crime. Here is something that almost nobody talks about when they cover this case. Something that changes the entire dynamic of everything that happened in that courtroom. Something that turned what appeared to be a clear family united in grief into something entirely different. What happened when the very lawyer hired to defend Donna Adelson turned and pointed the finger? Not at the state, not at outside actors, but at Wendi herself. That moment is coming. And when it does, nothing in this case will look the same again. Donna Adelson's defense was not simply going to be a denial. Trials of this magnitude rarely are. Defense attorneys in high-stakes murder cases have to do more than argue their client is innocent. They have to give the jury a narrative. They have to offer an alternative explanation for what happened. And in Donna Adelson's trial, that alternative explanation had a name. Wendi Adelson. What you are about to see is one of the most dramatic moments in this entire trial. Not the moment the prosecution made its case. Not the moment evidence was introduced. This is the moment the defense chose to shift the focus, and the direction they shifted it and will genuinely surprise you.
I wouldn't say without his influence in any way, but yes, they've grown up without their father.
He's not here to give them advice.
He is not.
He can't come to any of their functions, sports, anything else.
Correct.
They're not eating kosher like they would have with their father.
They are not.
They don't have him at all.
They don't have him in their lives day to day, no.
Because on July the 18th of 2014, he was brutally murdered in his driveway. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And you testified on direct that anybody in your family that had anything to do with it should be held responsible. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And that includes you, doesn't it?
Anyone who's responsible.
Nothing further.
Redirect examination.
When you said you were an actor in someone else's show, whose show was it?
I think I felt like I just wasn't fully present in my own life, that I had always been a real people pleaser. And so there was an aspect of not always being true to myself and wanting to make other people happy.
And one of those people is your mom, right?
Yes.
And that's part of why you kept going with relocation, even when you kind of had some doubts about it, right?
I would say it's part of the reason.
There's a specific kind of shock that comes from watching a legal strategy unfold in real time. You understand that defense attorneys have a job. You understand that their obligation is to their client. You understand that raising reasonable doubt sometimes means pointing the camera in a different direction. But when that direction is your client's own daughter, when the person a defense attorney implies may bear more responsibility than the defendant on trial is the daughter sitting in the same courtroom, something shifts in a way that is very hard to watch. Think about what that moment means. Donna Adelson, on trial for the murder of her daughter's ex-husband, has a defense team that is, at least in part, framing Wendi as a more likely suspect than Donna herself. The case had gone from the state versus the Adelson family to something altogether more personal and more painful. Adelson versus Adelson. What does that feel like for Wendi? What does that feel like for a family that had, presumably, once shared holidays and dinners and the ordinary rhythms of life? We do not know, but the courtroom captured it, and it is uncomfortable to watch. Here is something unusual about Wendi Adelson's testimony in this trial. At certain points, the questioning she faced from attorneys did not feel like the standard treatment of a cooperative witness. It felt almost adversarial. It felt, in moments, like a cross-examination. That is unusual. When a witness is supposed to be aligned with the interests of one side, the questioning from that side tends to be gentle, supportive, structured to elicit favorable information. But what happened with Wendi was different. Courtroom dynamics can shift in an instant. What begins as a standard examination can become something that looks and sounds very different. Here is one of those moments, testimony that started in one direction and ended somewhere else entirely.
It's like my parents have more reason to dislike Danny than almost anyone else. Is that what you said?
That is what I said.
And that's because he hurt you, right?
And I was saying that in the context of talking to law enforcement for hours and hours and trying to help them figure out who might be responsible.
Right. And who did you tell them might be responsible?
Well, I told them many, many people. But are you asking about this particular moment right here?
You told them your family might be responsible.
Or potentially someone to do with a former student or his current girlfriend. I mentioned lots of people that I thought could be responsible.
Okay. And of the lots of people that could have been responsible, your family was one.
Yep.
Because they might have done this thinking it would help you. I mean, that's what happened, right?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Your family had your ex-husband killed to try to help you, didn't they?
No, that's completely untrue.
When did you learn that Catherine Magbanoa was blackmailing your brother for the murder of your ex-husband?
Today.
So he never told you?
No.
You testified in Catherine Magbanoa's murder trial last year, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And she was convicted.
She was convicted, yes.
A crime for which she apparently is innocent because she was just a conduit for Sigfredo Garcia. Did you learn that today along with all of us?
Well, I learned that someone made that argument. I don't know whether it's true or not true.
Did your dad get any big gifts for his 70th?
I don't remember.
So there was no big lead up and discussion about some big gift that you were involved in, at least?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I gave him a present. I hope I did.
Do you remember what anybody gave him for that birthday?
I really don't.
Was the murder of Dan Markel your dad's big gift?
I mean, that's, of course not. That's a horrible thing to say.
What about the grandchildren, getting full unfettered access to the grandchildren?
My parents had full unfettered access to their grandchildren always.
You want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
Somebody hired them, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid them.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want them held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says, regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I say.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly
different
what I
today,
said
isn't
right
it?
here. Oh, that's not
no
right.
No further questions.
Notice the tension. Notice the moments where the questioning pushes rather than guides. Notice how Winnie navigates it. Because here is what is happening in a moment like that. A trained legal professional is being pushed by another trained legal professional. Both of them know exactly where the lines are. Both of them know exactly how much a single word can cost you. And what you're watching is not simply a witness answering questions. What you're watching is something closer to a chess match. Move and countermove, phrase and response. Every word chosen with intention. The question that this kind of testimony raises is profound. Is she distancing herself from Charlie? Is she protecting him in ways that are invisible to the casual observer? Is she threading a needle between loyalty to her brother and the oath she just swore to tell the truth? Watch her face in those moments. Watch what happens when a question becomes uncomfortable. Watch how quickly she finds the words. And then ask yourself, is this what innocence looks like? Or is this what intelligence under pressure looks like? Of all the moments in Wendi Adelson's testimony, perhaps none drew more attention than the moment she directly denied having any involvement in a plot against Dan Markel. It was the moment everyone had been building toward. The moment where the most important question in this entire story was finally, directly, put to her. Did she have any role in what happened to Dan Markel? There are moments in a trial where everything goes quiet, not because the room is silent, but because every person present is holding their breath, waiting for the answer to a question that has hung over this case for years. This is that moment.
Were you in any way involved in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
No.
Did you maybe know it was going to happen but not know the details?
I did not know it was going to happen, and I did not know any details.
Did you provide any information, even unknowingly in hindsight, that you think could have been used to assist the murderers?
I don't think so. I didn't provide any information.
What information do you have regarding your mother's involvement in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
I don't have information.
But you do admit that your brother said he looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel.
I don't. I admit that my brother made a tasteless joke repeatedly about buying me a TV because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
But then someone did hire a hitman who did kill Dan Markel, right?
Yes, that happened.
Was part of the plot to kill your ex for you to have plausible deniability or to know very little about it?
I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny.
Were you shielded from the plot because, I don't know, you couldn't be trusted to keep a secret?
I was not involved in any plot to kill Danny.
Why did you tell investigator Isom in your law enforcement interview that you were worried the police, or you were worried, I guess, in the police car on the way to be interviewed, that you might be considered a suspect?
Because I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect.
Were you treated as a suspect?
I was not.
But you mentioned 9 times in your law enforcement interview being a suspect, didn't you?
I did, yes.
The denial was clear. It was on the record. It was unambiguous in its surface meaning. But here is what a skilled legal analyst, and there were many watching this testimony, will tell you about denials. The most revealing thing is often not the denial itself, but the architecture around it. What was said immediately before? What was said immediately after? What specific language was chosen and what language was carefully avoided? There are different ways to deny something. You can say, I had no idea this was going to happen. You can say, I never asked anyone to do anything like this. You can say, I would never want anything like this. You can say, I had absolutely no involvement. Each of those sentences carries a different legal and emotional weight. Each of them includes some things and, deliberately or not, excludes others. Pay attention to what Wendi said, and then pay attention to what she did not say. Because sometimes the most important thing a witness tells you is hidden not in the words they choose, but in the silence around those words. Let us step back for a moment and look at the full picture. Here is where things stand. Sigfrido Garcia and Luis Rivera, convicted. Catherine Magbanua, convicted. Donna Adelson, indicted and tried. Charlie Adelson, indicted. And Wendi Adelson, not charged, not indicted, but called as a key witness in her mother's murder trial. That position, simultaneously a family member of the accused, a person of interest to investigators, and a sworn witness, is almost without parallel in cases of this kind. In any criminal case, the role of a witness is defined by the court. But sometimes a witness occupies a space in a trial far more complicated than that title suggests. Here is Wendi Adelson taking the stand as a key witness in her mother's murder trial.
Good morning. If you can just take your seat for right now, I will swear you in when the jurors re-enter the room. I believe, even though the jurors indicated they did not have to go to the bathroom at this point, if we are once again dealing with the needs of 14 people, they might be in the bathroom. So wait for the knock. Okay. It's fun. I believe that we have a few jurors that do need to use the restroom. If anyone needs to stretch their legs or use the bathroom themselves, please take your opportunity now. Once we start with the testimony, again, the door will remain closed if you exit. Go ahead. Oh, before you leave the room, Ms. Fulford, once again, Mrs. Adelson, I'm going to reiterate the instruction that I gave to you last Friday concerning any reactions that you may have to either the testimony or the evidence in the case. I understand this may be a distressing thing for your child to be offering testimony in your trial. However, you are to control your expressions and your emotions. Do you understand those? Everyone can take their break. If you need to step down until it's time to testify, you may do so as well.
Think about the institutional strangeness of this. The prosecution is using the testimony of the woman whose divorce from the victim is, by the state's own theory, the foundational motivation for this entire crime. They're asking her to help them convict her own mother. And she's doing it. Under oath. In a courtroom. What does that say about this family? What does that say about the choices that were made and the consequences that spread outward through every relationship? There's a version of this story in which Wendi Adelson is a victim. A woman who lost her marriage, who found herself surrounded by family members who made decisions she did not endorse or even know about, and who has spent years living with the consequences. A woman who cooperated because she had no choice and because some part of her wanted the truth to come out. There's another version in which the story is more complicated. And the extraordinary thing about this case is that both of those versions, after years of investigation, remain plausible. You may think you now understand who Wendi Adelson is in this story. You may think the picture is becoming clearer. But here is what this case is still doing, right now, in the present tense, that will force you to reconsider everything you thought you knew. Because this story is not over. There are still pieces in motion. There are still decisions being made. And the final chapter of the Adelson family's legal saga has not yet been written. What is happening right now in this case will change how you understand everything that came before. Keep watching. It is important at this point in our story to be precise about what the evidence actually establishes and what it does not. What is established by convictions and court records? 2 men carried out the shooting of Dan Markel. A woman connected to one of those men and to a member of the Adelson family was convicted for her role in the murder. What the prosecution's theory argued, the motivation for the murder ran through the Adelson family. That Charlie Adelson was the connection point between the convicted individuals and the alleged payment. That this was a murder motivated, at least in part, by the family's desire to resolve the lingering complications of the divorce, including a potential relocation of Wendi and the children to South Florida. What has never been established in court, Wendi Adelson's direct involvement in any plan to harm Dan Markel. This distinction matters enormously. But holding on to that line does not make the questions go away. It does not explain why this case keeps circling back to one woman. It does not resolve the fundamental mystery at the heart of this story. What did Wendi Adelson know? And when did she know it? Those two questions have never been answered in a courtroom. They may never be answered at all. There is something deeply human at the core of this case that gets lost when it is discussed only as a legal mystery or a criminal investigation. Somewhere in this story, people who loved each other made choices. People who shared blood and meals and memories and the ordinary, irreplaceable closeness of family made decisions that destroyed everything. A man died. Children lost their father. A family tore itself apart in a courtroom for the world to see. And at the center of all of it is a woman who by every legal measure has not been found responsible for any of it, but who, by the nature of where she stood in this story, has been forced to carry pieces of it anyway. What is it like to be Wendi Adelson? To watch your mother be led into a courtroom? To watch your brother face charges? To sit on a witness stand and answer questions about the worst thing that ever happened in your life? A life that you did not choose to blow apart. We do not know what is inside her mind. What we know is what the record shows. A woman surrounded by this tragedy for more than a decade, and who, unlike almost everyone else close to this case, has never been held legally responsible for it. Donna Adelson's trial was one of the most anticipated proceedings in this case's long history. The prosecution's case against her rested on the theory that she had been a central figure in the alleged plot, someone who solicited and conspired in the killing of her daughter's ex-husband. Her defense, as we have discussed, included a strategy that pointed, at least partially, in Wendi's direction. That strategy is remarkable in its own right. Not because of what it tells us about Wendi, but because of what it reveals about the kind of family dynamics this case exposed. Donna Adelson was found guilty. It was a verdict that sent shockwaves through the case and through observers who had followed every development for years. But here is where the case remains active and unresolved. Charlie Adelson's charges have not yet been fully adjudicated at the time of this production. The wheels of the legal system are still turning. There are motions, hearings, and developments that continue to unfold. This is not a case that is finished. This is a case that is still being written. Here is something we want you to think about long after this video is over. Every person in this case, the convicted individuals, the indicted family members, exists in a world of legal clarity, however incomplete. They have been charged, tried, convicted, or are awaiting resolution. The system has placed them inside a defined category. But Wendi Adelson exists in a different kind of space. She is not guilty. She has not been charged. She has cooperated. She has testified. She has, by every available legal measure, been treated as a witness rather than a defendant. And yet she remains, almost uniquely, a person about whom every new piece of information raises questions rather than resolving them. The fictional book, the body cam footage, the careful testimony, the sibling loyalty, the position of being simultaneously inside and outside this case. There's a version of Wendi Adelson who is exactly what her testimony presents. A woman caught in a tragedy she did not create, doing her best to navigate an impossible situation with the tools she has. And there is another version, one the evidence neither confirms nor rules out, of something more complicated, something more knowing, something that has been carefully managed through every public appearance and every word carefully chosen. Here is the question this case really asks. How will you ever know the people closest to you? How certain can you ever be that the people you love are exactly who they appear to be? And if someone in your life made a devastating choice, a choice that destroyed someone else, would you know? Would you want to know? Wendi Adelson has sat in that space between knowing and not knowing, at least in the public record, for more than a decade. And that space is exactly where the most unsettling stories live. Before we close this chapter of the story, there's one thing we have not yet fully addressed. Something that investigators have never stopped thinking about. Something that sits underneath every piece of testimony, every legal motion, every moment of courtroom drama. There's a conversation, or perhaps several conversations, that may have happened in the days and weeks before Dan Markel was shot. Conversations that no recording captured. Conversations that may explain everything. And the person who may know what was said in those conversations is the same person we have been talking about for the last hour. Whether the full truth ever comes out remains one of the most haunting open questions in American true crime. As of this production, This case continues to develop. Charlie Adelson's legal situation remains active. There are motions, appeals, and legal proceedings still working their way through the system. The families of both Dan Markel and the Adelson family continue to live with the consequences of everything that has unfolded. Dan Markel's family, his parents, his siblings, the people who loved him, have been present through every stage of this ordeal. They have waited for more than a decade for something that might feel like justice. Whether they have found it is something only they can say. What is certain is that this story, which began with a 911 call on a summer morning in 2014, has not reached its final page. The trail is still dark, and we are still following it. This has been Dark Trail Files. If this story moved you, if it left you with questions you cannot put down, that is the point. We do not do this work to make things easier. We do it to make the truth harder to ignore. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Every week, we go where the truth leads, even when the trail is dark. Especially then. This is Dark Trail Files. We will see you on the next one.